What's up, guys? So this is what if Deku did anime training. This was the second most requested on my most recent poll. Now, I know it only got less than 10% of people's request, but the other one was just that overwhelming. Anyway, back to the what if. So, Deku, gets told he doesn't have a quirk, and he turns to what he likes. He looks to anime and manga and everything like that, and he's like, they didn't have powers. And then he actually reads up on one called Black Clover, and he said, this dude doesn't even have powers. But he just is so strong that he doesn't need them to beat everyone's ass. And this actually really emphasizes Deku's want to be stronger. He said he'll become the #1 hero with no powers. He wanted to be the Wizard King. I'll be the #1 hero. I'll do it. And then we have another thing, Goku. He works his physical body in martial arts. Okay, that's perfect. Martial arts. And then he just keeps going and he says Saitama. Doesn't have any special abilities, he just trained his body to that level. Perfect. And he goes through each and every one of these animes, and every single week he switches up his training. One week he does Saitama's, the next he does Goku's, one point he does Asta's. He just keeps going and keeps going. He does literally most anime characters, and by the time he even at one point gets to Baki characters. And I know this picture's just of him training, but it just reminds me of Baki characters way too much. Anyway, yeah. So I guess he would always wear this purse. This would be his main workout gear, which, honestly, same. I would wear the same stuff. But anyway, so yeah. He starts just training like a madman, and every single day he works out. But one day he stops working out. He just finished his last, training, saying, alright, now who else do I have to train for? And he was kind of sad, because he'd just reached the end of the training. He wore weighted clothes, he did everything. He did every anime character's training that he could find. And if you're saying, oh, if he swept every week, there'd be at least someone left, he just can't find anyone he hasn't already done. And then he's just looking around. He's gone through every shonen he can think of. And most other animes as well. Like, that's all he could find. Then kind of being a little bit upset, saying, well, I'm gonna keep training. As he went back to doing all the workouts that he's noted were the best ones for his body. Weighted training like Goku, but throwing on Rock Lee's type weights as well. And noting that using Asta's training of going around to being able to just do so many of them at once was so crazy. And Saitama's of breaking your limiter training was intense on him too. He just kept doing this kind of main training ones. And then we cut over to when he's in middle school. And at this point, he's at the end of his year, and his body is more defined like this than it is what he was in canon. He's not scrawny, he's built. And Bakugo can't just pick on him. He notes that any anime character he's watched never got picked on by a bully, or at least when they did, they never let it happen for too long. And then he straight up broke Bakugo's. Whenever Bakugo went to do that explosion, that would originally mess up Deku, would originally mess up his notebook. In canon, Deku sidesteps this and punches Bakugo in the mouth. This knocked Bakugo clean out. And this is when Bakugo, his friends just throw a bucket of water on him, and they kind of just leave with him. Them all being pissy, Bakugo being even more pissy. He would do the same thing he did in canon. Now, this is when that sledge villain attack would still happen. But in this version, Deku's actually doing way better on it. He's dodging the sledge, he's actually being able to weave and using martial arts. At one point, even using a skill mainly made to fight waves, and he actually threw a punch at full force, which actually rippled enough to where it pushed back the entirety of the sledge villain. And this only bought him enough time for All Might to appear, hit it the same way he did, knock Deku out. Deku wakes up, meets All Might, fanboys just a little bit, not much. And he actually said he's a huge fan and all that, and All Might said, oh my boy, signs his notebook, all that went canon. But then, something really unexpected happened. He's about to ask the same question, actually still hooked on All Might's leg. All Might in this version noticing that he hooked onto his leg after he had jumped, right afterwards, not when Deku started just screaming. Because he just noticed that there was another huge amount of weight on his side, and he just looked down after he had jumped, as he landed on a building, as he debuffs, and Deku still asks, "Who are you? You couldn't be All Might, yada yada yada." And this is when All Might explains what's going on, and Deku kind of, asks his question, could a guy with no quirk be a hero? Which, honestly, he's probably more dangerous than 90% of the people with quirks, so I don't see a reason why he couldn't be a hero. But, yeah, All Might would still say no, someone with no quirk couldn't be a hero. But this only strived Deku's rage a little bit. And he walked away, met the Sledge Villain. In this version, when he sees the Sledge Villain attacking Bakugo, he doesn't stand around like the heroes were doing. He straight up ran in there with his bag, and he just chucked it at the thing, grabs Bakugo, does what would have been usually a judo slam, tearing Bakugo away from the Sledge Villain. Barely tearing him away from the Sledge Villain. Just for the Sledge Villain to say, "Oh, you want a round two, kid, do ya? Well, I don't think All Might will be here to save you this time." As Deku said, "I know he won't." Saying, "Oh, so you know what'll happen, now just give me back that boy." As Deku just straight up grabbed Bakugo, who's slightly unconscious but still somewhat awake, and just threw him to the heroes. In a kind of last-ditch effort, they saw his back. And they could see what looked to be it looked like All Might in a sense. Sheer power. As Deku put everything into one punch, thinking like Saitama, and just started running the ones, trying to do his best, weaving the villain, doing all that, hoping another hero with something would show up, as All Might would just straight up bloody and beaten, because he was still bleeding out of his mouth, ran in and punched the Sledge Villain, and said, as he was huffing, saying, "All Might has finished." As Deku still would wind up walking home after getting told, "Oh dude, you had no quirk, why would you do that?" And he said, and this is when Deku would say something unexpected, "At least someone had to be a hero," as he walks away. The hero's actually thinking, "Wow, he's right." As he would basically finally walk away. And this is when All Might would actually walk up to him and say, "I was wrong, kid, you can be a hero, but not quirkless. I'll give you my quirk, my power, but you'll still have to train." Hearing this, he's like, "Sure, I train every day." All Might's like, "Alright, really, let's go." As he went to the beach and had him clean it up still. This kind of surprised All Might just a little bit. Because whenever he was given the All-American Dream Plan, after Deku, showed him what he's capable of, he actually was trained by All Might. In this version, Deku can handle way more One For All. Maybe not 100%, like All Might could originally, but that's because this One For All is so much stronger than what All Might had to receive. Now, Deku, who knows martial arts and all that, when he's given One For All the same way he was in canon, but in this version, he's like, "Alright." And he actually noted, "How much do you think I'll be able to handle?" And this is when All Might said something unexpected. Currently, probably 20%. Maybe even higher. I'd say bare minimum 20. Maximum 40. Hearing this, Deku's like, "Oh, is that all?" This is when All Might would say, well, to be fair, most people who tried taking it would either have their arms blown off, barely be able to handle it, and shatter their limbs every time they swung, or probably turn their limbs purple every time they punched and ripped their arms apart. Fair point. Alright. As Deku would actually see what Uraraka the way he did in canon, but in this version he jumped forward and threw that same punch. But in this version he wasn't anywhere near as injured. He was sure he had a broken arm, or his legs were both broken, and he had a broken arm, but he wasn't they weren't flapping in the wind. There was just one clean snap from his bicep and forearm. That's 2 breaks, and one on his, thigh and calf on each leg. So he's like, "Alright," so apparently right there at that midpoint isn't strong enough to handle it yet. Noting that this was actually stronger than he was expecting. And this was when All Might had still told him that was 100% One For All. You did amazing. Good job. And I'm amazed you were able to handle it so well. You could probably handle if you could control it, maybe even possibly 30% as a normal. this is when Deku's thinking, and he actually tried, and he kept training with All Might after school for the 2 weeks. And then he gets into UA the same way with the same skill. But in this version, things go a little bit different. Mainly that he's 100%, considered the top dog at the school. As dude's a brick shit house, in other words. He's built like a truck. Like, he's straight up built solid. And he knows how to fight. And he actually knows one person from UA, like from class 1A, and that would be Tojiro or whatever, dude with a tail. He knows him because they actually had to fight in a martial arts tournament, which would be, I think, karate, I'm not sure, whatever that dude uses, as he'd actually seen each other, and they actually congratulated each other for their wins, though it was obvious who would be winning in that fight. It'd be Deku. Even if the dude used his tail, it wouldn't help him at all. And this is when he actually was thinking, I think everyone in this class would be ripped apart if this could actually fight. And they did the whole class thing, you'll have to be in the teams, and it was Deku and Uraraka versus, and it was versus Bakugo and Ida. In this version, Deku was actually more than prepared enough for this one. So since he had been still training, his body was getting even stronger. And he actually could handle a far higher percentage at this point. Instead of him going all the way out to where it was at the 30 or 40%, he could even handle 60. But that was his max. Like, after that, he would break a limb. And even though he could go to 60, he didn't have proper control over the power yet. He can go into it, and he was still already had full cowling as way easier. But in this version, 6% would kind of still hurt him a little bit, would tear his muscles a good bit. Now, then you've got to have the training for the what was it? When they go into the UA, I mean not UA, the USJ. The USJ incident going basically the exact same, but whenever they go to get, they won't even need All Might, honestly, because like in this version, when Deku actually gets over there, right to the Nomu, he's terrifying the Nomu. As the Nomu was only ever trained to fight All Might, but this kid, it was at least as strong as All Might. As All Might, in his, injured form, is actually only at 60% of his, full strength from his prime. So yeah, that's what Deku got, his prime power. The one All Might's punches, even at full force, would only be 60%. So he actually seems about even with All Might. This is when Deku pulled one punch out, which he was thinking about calling, which, it's called the United States of Smash, which for Deku it's called the 1,000,000% United States of Smash, because it's even stronger than that. It's him putting everything into one shot. Though it turns his arm purple, he noted that his arms weren't really that messed up after using his normal amount of power. So when his arm got ripped to shreds, punching the Nomu, almost ripping it apart, and the Nomu got captured. Right when All Might got there, and all the other heroes, Shigaraki was being dealt with. Was already kind of, apprehended. But, the teacher, Mr. Aizawa, was beaten pretty badly. They had 2 weeks to recover, and Deku had basically spent that time, training up again, and getting where he can actually handle 63%. This is when he noticed that he can now handle more than All Might, saying, "Hey, All Might, I think I'm finally stronger than you." He's like, "Yeah, you are. Good job, kid." As Deku barely was able to do it, but he was still somewhat able to. He made it all the way to the area. I mean, in this version, whenever they have to, sports festival, Deku walks up, not really caring, and the first thing that happened was Todoroki made a wall of ice, trying to take everyone out. So other than Bakugo and maybe a handful of others, most people were already stopped. I mean, sure, there was a few people who knew how to use their quirks to make ways through. Kirishima started smacking it as hard as he could. Bakugo straight up blew through it, and most people would just use the holes those two made. Deku, on the other hand, he just straight up went, you know what? Everyone make way! Hearing this, most people saw this demanding voice and backed up. They heard it and they were kind of scared, as Deku pulled a punch back and shot up a 40% punch, which he's basically planning on going full out with 40% this whole time. At max, he may go to 50, not planning on going any higher. But then, he literally says, as this basically tore apart all the ice, oh, that kid did that one too, as he basically stomped one foot, shattering all the ice for around 30 feet from everywhere he stepped. And like a juggernaut, he started running, and everywhere he stepped, 30 feet in front of him, ice would shatter. This is when he said, you know what, enough full force, as he basically just leaped, punching through one of the robots, cleanly cleaving through it, as he basically landed on the rope, catching himself, and then launching himself back up. He noted that now he was in second place, only to Todoroki, who was barely ahead of him, which he noted where Todoroki was. Hold on a second, guys. Alright, I'm back. I just got a splinter on my finger. Anyway, Deku's doing his, thing, running through, and he's like, and they're like, Bakugo barely just caught up with, Todoroki, as Todoroki's still, like, okay, I can still win this, I just have to hit them with the ice. As he goes to freeze them both, Deku just straight up went, alright, I can go up into it. He held 63%, as he goes to 63%, he flashed forward one step, which what they only saw was one step, as basically Deku flew all the way with speed, akin to more lightning than anything. No one could keep up with no one could even see where he was, as he landed right behind the mines. Everyone else confused, as they barely were able to get past, as they were still trying to pass, the obstacle with the robots. Bakugo was barely ahead of that, and so was, Todoroki. And this is where when it was announced, oh, these are the mines. If you step on one, it won't hurt you, but it will hurt you a little bit, but it won't kill you. This is when Deku has an idea. He literally dug up all the mines, put them all together, and it's like, what's this planning? As he basically just went, as he took a rock and slammed it on the mines, as he took off flying, right passing the finish line, as there was a giant explosion, which completely stopped everyone from going forward. Bakugo was completely stopped by this explosion that made his looks like nothing, and Todoroki was like, it's gonna take a minute to just go through, as he basically making a staircase of ice, jumping on it, trying to get up there. Bakugo trying to fly above the explosion and land, but he couldn't do that. He was only barely able to. Right when the smoke was starting to clear and everyone was going through it, they know that Deku had already made it first, not even caring. Still having the 1 million thing, not really caring. Then there was literally just saying like, okay, what else is gonna happen? And boom, he made the same team he did in canon. In this version, he straight up just said, alright, I have an idea. I'll be the legs. As basically everyone else kind of just hopped on his back, as basically just started jumping up and started like forcing his foot down the ground, being his more kicking himself, staying up. No one could stop him. Like, he straight up for 10 minutes kept hitting the ground, hitting like with air pressure to keep them up off the ground and away from everyone else. There was only a handful of people with the reach to even go towards him, and anytime they went too close, they would just get sent down to the ground, and their, badge stolen. Like, they weren't able to do it. One guy was like, oh, we're better than anyone in Class 1A. What the crap is that guy doing? As he turned and saw Deku, this dude's literally outdoing everyone. Yeah, I'm not messing with him. As then you have, everything ends with just them having the ultimate thing. And then the fights. Those go a little bit different. Now, I'm not sure what they were in canon. I know the first one being that weird guy who looks a little bit like Aizawa, and the guy who versus Deku, but that one will go where he actually answers a question, and Deku's like, no you don't, as he kind of flicked downwards, which utterly ripped apart the ground where he was, and he said, oh, you really thought you did that, didn't you? As he's about to respond, and he said, did I tell you to respond? sending the dude flying with a punch. As he cracked his neck, saying, as everyone's like, good, he took out the kid with the villain quirk. And then Deku roars out, hey, he wasn't a villain. He's a hero. Hell, he's more heroic than half the people in the hero class. He used his power to do something unexpected. And hey, this would actually make it so much easier to capture villains. All they'd have to do is respond to him, and they can go to jail. Think about how useful that would be. And they're actually like, that'd be a badass power. Honestly, he'd probably be broken with it. True. Anyway. Then there was the next fight, and I don't even know which one it was next, but I'm gonna say it was the Todoroki fight, which that was basically the next big fight. In Todoroki's fight, all he had to do against Todoroki was straight up say, and he still wanted to get Todoroki to use his fire too, and he said, I wouldn't ever feel good beating you at half strength. He's making the classic anime move of letting him power up. As he goes to throw that full force, as Deku says, oh, I actually might have to go all out for this one. And he threw the same punch he was planning on in canon, but in this version he held his breath. And he's basically stood in the middle of the, mist that Midnight was making, as he said, please, turn off the mist. Holding his breath, actually then jumping up in the air to get some actual fresh air, as he was breathing and then landed back down, as he had won. Then he had to deal with the fight between himself and Bakugo. And this version, Bakugo's kind of scared. He thinks, I've gotten stronger, I can handle him. Oh, crap. As the first thing that happened whenever he had to fight Bakugo is Bakugo completely put him on his ass. With a complete explosion into the face of Deku, which put him only back to on his ass. He then stood up, saying, alright, no more holding back. As he goes all the way to 64%, which is kind of what rips his muscles apart, saying, I can handle it for a few moments, as he threw one good punch into Bakugo's side, which sent him basically into the wall. This, even though it sent him into the wall, made him hit the ground. And this is when everyone said, alright, he wins. And this is where Bakugo was completely surprised. He literally got second place. How could he, of all people, get second place? This made no sense to him. Just for Deku to say, you could have gotten stronger. You could be better if you ever actually trained. And then he yells, believe it, like Naruto, like a true Naruto fan would. And it's like, okay. As some people know this quote, and they're like, this motherfucker really quoting Naruto out here. Whatever. And basically, the series would just go with Deku one-shotting everybody. Whenever they have to do the whole thing, and he meets Stain, the first thing that happens is he basically just basically was weaving through Stain, and then actually was able to do a killing kick to Stain from Goku. From, watching Dragon Ball, he knows Goku's type of fighting style. He hit him with that kind of kick. And basically, he did the actual moves of Goku, which was overwhelming and beating the crap out of Stain, honestly. Making him hit the ground. And even though Stain literally just rolled and hit the floor, this wasn't a weak. He's not weak, so this was actually really damn impressive. Even though he was on the ground, he did keep up better than anyone expected him to. And Stain then would go to the jail, and all that would go like that. And next big event, I really don't know what it was. I think, it was the hero exams. Well, no, I think, it was the summer camp. So, as All Might's not there, he's like, alright, the only thing I feel like needs to be said is, I'm actually weaker than Deku, than Izuku, so I have nothing to worry about. He'll be easily able to keep up. This made it where Izuku was just not worried, as the whole camp kind of goes where it would go as canon, except for the fact that right before he's about to have to go in with everyone else, he was told, hold on, Izuku, you're known to be so much stronger, you may even be stronger than All Might, easily. So you're going to have to go 5 minutes before they do. as they were sent off, with Deku going, and he said, alright, basically clearing a massive path with every step he took. And then he got there right before the bus even did. He had been lightning fast, making it all the way to the mountain, while everyone else sadly wouldn't make it until right before dinner. Now, he's basically there not really caring, so as they kind of pull up, they're like, wait, you're already here? As he said, yeah, maybe I should have brought my weights. I should put my weights on. What? Yeah, you know the ones y'all teachers were wearing? I wear those for my training, All Might style, with actually twice my body weight. As they were like, what? That's impressive. Damn. As he was more going back into his regular training clothes like this, but though he never really used them, he would keep them in case he needed them. Though he would usually rock this, he wouldn't be against rocking these. Which for the training camp, he actually chose to wear this. He brought this in case he needed it, but he always wore this. And their training for Deku was going to be the whole what he should throw, how to get stronger, and all that. Get his muscles able to handle 100% of his power. As he said, he can only handle about 64% at most, which they saw this, his speed and strength, saying that was only 64%. Yeah. Them saying, you really just need to learn how to hold back at this point, man. I don't think anyone can stop you. Maybe All Might. And he said, actually, I'm stronger than All Might. No way, kid, you're no stronger than All Might. As this is when they get a call from All Might himself saying, hey, for young Izuku's training, what you want to do is have him train his physical strength. That's all. Just have him train his body, so he can get more akin to his power. And this is when he was like, alright, let's settle this debate with All Might. Is it true that Izuku is stronger than you? He keeps claiming he is. And this is when All Might said, honestly, yes, he is. Not by much, but he is still stronger than me. This actually shocked them all. And then whenever the villains attack, that would go way different. Because anytime that one would run into Deku, they would just get knocked out clean. But when you have to deal with Muscular, he just straight up hit this dude with, instead of the 1,000,000%, he hit him with a 20% punch. This was able to easily send him flying. And then he hit him with and then he went to his buff form and everything, which actually kind of made Deku have to go all out on him. Which would make him literally hit him with instead of yelling Delaware Detroit Smash, he yelled United States of Smash, 1,000,000%, shattering the mountain underneath them, shattering one of his arms. Though both of his legs were completely fine, and his right arm was fine too. He'd hit him with the left arm to finish the fight, noting that's probably the only thing that could have stopped him. Which, yeah, was probably accurate. That was probably the only thing that could have actually feasibly stopped him. But that's about it. Then we've got the whole thing where they go through that, and they have to go save Bakugo. In this version, saving Bakugo would happen pretty easily, as they all made the same plans to go save Bakugo, but Deku still just the legs of the operation. But when he goes to jump and do the whole thing, as he pulls everyone with him, he has one last idea. He sent himself back down, and seeing that All Might was struggling, he stepped in and does a massive kick to the stomach of All For One. All For One saying, how dare you, kid? Oh, wait, you're the successor, aren't you? You're the only one who could be it. As he goes to kill Deku, just for All Might to go trying to step in the way, for Deku to push him out the way, and get a punch sent right into the stomach of All For One, as All Might used his 1,000,000%, used his United States of Smash to that final punch. As All Might was about to collapse, Deku caught him and saying, I've got you, master. Come on, sensei, let's get you home. As he said, remember, Deku, you're next. Pointing dead at him, saying, you're the next one. As All Might's about to collapse, as Deku catches him, and kind of just stumbled with him all the way out. As this made it where they could actually get back to where they needed to be. Where they needed to be was just, that one area. They need to get back to the series anyway. So yeah, he goes a little bit farther, yada 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 yada, and go. Being that this is another recent attack and everything, they actually wind up choosing to go take Deku and have him with the other students go to the dorms, which was quite easy to do. And then we've got the whole thing with, instead of not just the dorms, everything goes as canon until we reach that one point when he has to fight with the Overhaul. And Overhaul, he basically just busts through the wall like a juggernaut, just running through them all with just hit, sending every wall flying. And he was basically keeping up with Mirio quite easily. As right when Mirio went to fight, this is about 2 seconds later, Deku busts in, saving Mirio and Night Eye, to slam his mean fist right into the jaw of this dude. And Eri actually helped him hit him with the 1,000,000% punches. Every punch was 1,000,000%. And this made it where Deku's arms should have been jellified, but instead, they were stronger than ever. Thanks to Eri repeatedly healing him. As he would take Eri in and raise her until the next generation of One for All. Until the next generation of UA. He wound up actually giving Kota One for All, though, as a kind of goodbye present, whenever he was already the hero. He was a symbol of peace. Giving the next generation this power, but he said he had to earn it. Kota is saying, yes, master, as he had inherited the power and all the extra quirks that came with it that Deku had trained. Black Whip, Float, I don't know what the other ones are. But yeah, he unlocked all of those quirks. And then he said, wow, master, I'm so strong, with your powers as well. Though he had to train his full life, after Deku had saved him, to get this power. Eri saying, why did he's the only one who get a gift of powers? And this is when Deku said, you do realize that you're still stronger than him, right? Fair point. Yeah. Eri, you're still stronger than him, by far. Your power is literally broken as possible. Fair point. As at this point, Deku was basically leading the heroes, noting he still had One for All's power. Even though he didn't have the quirk anymore, he still had the remnants of it. And it still in him burned like a raging fire. While he'd barely just passed a spark of it along to his next generation, the kid was obviously able to handle it. As he had then, dealt with the whole problems. One, he had to deal with the final goodbyes he had to make when he was finally retiring as a hero. But he still had power, and he was still a hero. He was only retiring from his number 1 spot. As he said, I guess it's finally yours, Mirio. As Kachan being in number 3, being like, why am I in number 3? Now you're number 2. And this is when, sadly, Mirio would have to go down as well, as he would wind up leaving heroing. And these guys are in their 40s, which I know sounds really young to do this, but yeah. Mirio kept it, but he kind of was between him and Bakugo to stay in number 1 place. And Deku was still a hero. He's still heroed every day, but he really was just training his body at this point and didn't have any more of One for All left. He was just going with punch to punch. And that's barely what kept him in first place, which really he thought it would take him all the way down to like at least 3rd, possibly 4th. He thought it would put him in 4th place, taking Todoroki's spot in 4th. Or maybe even 5th, taking Sun Eater's spot. But then he was surprised when he still kept his 1st place spot for a few more years, until eventually it got taken over by Kota. As he said, good job, Kota. then Deku only being in second, and recovery hero, Eri, the true medic, was actually considered the best recovery hero and got the rank 5th. This actually kind of surprised everyone, as now Eri was in that top ranking. And she actually would keep getting a higher ranking, as well as, Kota becoming stronger as well. Them being good friends, actually eventually having their own child, who they passed down One for All to, who winds up becoming stronger than Deku, and all of them as well. This kid being named after him, given the name Deku, as what Baka would always call Izuku whenever they were younger. As he would wind up getting One for All and becoming a strong powerhouse, given a fusion between all of the power from his mother and his father's little bit of power from water, and massive, overpowered punches. Leaving this kid with enough force to be able to basically take on everybody. As he became the last #1 hero, as it was kind of retired after that point. Everyone was. And by retired, I mean, after this point, it just kept going. One for All kept getting stronger, to the point where they actually had to bury him with, this kid actually had to be buried with it, never passing it down. Because it was already at such high power that if anyone else took it, it would blow their limbs off the first time they tried using it. Even if they trained their whole lives, it was already that powerful. Once Deku was done with it, so when Kota had it, it was that powerful, and this kid had to be trained from birth to be able to handle this power. Anyone else literally couldn't handle it. As there was a kind of thing of it being reset. The power went back to 0, or kind of, not really 0, where it would still bring you all the quirks of everyone who's had it before, but it wouldn't do the whole, tearing you apart thing. As a final thing. So that's what Deku did anime training.